Can we circle back a little bit to the nursing homes, right? We're talking about the elderly and when they are in nursing home care. What is the financial status of our nursing homes in the state?
Well, our nursing homes in the state are, they struggle. And a lot of them have had waivers for things such as having sprinkler systems put in. Many of the nursing homes, the long-term care facilities in the state of South Dakota are old, and they can't always be retrofit with the design and the safety components that are required by the state. And those state regulations actually come from the federal government for the most part, and the state administrates those and does the monitoring of those. So they are aging. They are almost always semi-private rooms, and I have an issue with that, because I think people deserve they deserve the respect of privacy for both infection control, confidentiality, and just maybe human dignity is how that goes. So they are struggling with both the physical plant, and they struggle with staffing, because that's hard work. And it's not just hard physically, it's caring for humans requires a lot of emotional expenditure, because they're people and you have to treat them with respect and dignity. And that is very difficult for a lot of the long-term care facilities. And if you don't have the physical components to support people doing their jobs, they're not going to stay. They're not going to stay. But can you afford to buy a good lift or a nice tub, or have rooms that are large enough and private to care for people when you are not being reimbursed for what your cost of care is already?
Because aren't they like most of them are operating at a deficit already?
They operate at a deficit.
So,
yes.
Are you aware of the bill out, the filial bill? I'll say right, filial bill that is in effect in South Dakota and has been used in some cases where children are responsible for the payments that to the nursing home that the Medicaid isn't covering, right? And it can hold them liable for all that financial cost. Now, has it happened a lot? No, but it's something that's a real possibility.
Well, the more financial pressure you put on these facilities, I can see where that would happen, because that individual that is on in long-term care that is funded by Medicaid has already, their assets are gone.
Right, and there's over 50% of seniors in long-term care
are Medicaid.
On Medicaid.
They are on Medicaid.
Yeah. So it's a frightening issue.
It's tough. It's tough for the recipient of care, because they really are at a point in their life where they aren't capable of managing their own care. So they really are at the mercy of the Department of Social Services, the legislators that look at the funding, and their family as they can best do it. But if you look at the mode of income in South Dakota, I would say don't give me the average, because you're averaging in millionaires, and you really need to look at what most people make in South Dakota, that chunk. And it's not enough to be able to cover the expenses. And they might be able to, Medicaid might cover the long-term care, but if there are other needs, such as physical therapy, that maybe they don't meet the Medicare requirements, that adds up pretty darn quickly. So that is that should scare people to know that it's out there, it's kind of lurking in the woods, that if the state should become so compressed with their funding, and that will happen with this bill, it totally compresses funding. There are many components, and I'm going to just jump into this because I'm thinking of it, but there are components in that bill that will allow the federal adjustment for funding to be restricted if they don't follow the rules perfectly for that in that new bill. So if you have someone that has applied for a work permit, and they get a work permit and they're trying to become a resident of this country, in that gap time, in some states allow them to be Medicaid recipients. And in this bill, the federal government will then cease a component of their funding for that. So, and they can cease it for anything. In fact, the Medicaid expansion, people are really at risk right now. Medicaid expansion and children's health insurance are both reimbursed they're funded by the federal government at a greater rate than the standard Medicaid recipient. And if this bill goes through and the federal component is reduced,
Has to come from somewhere.
the South Dakota legislature in this session, 2025, passed legislation that said if that federal monetary assistance is decreased for the expanded Medicaid recipients, that program, that component of the program is over.
Yeah.
It is done.